Welcome to Boomcast, Episode 3, Jim Meyers, who runs the Sasquatch Outpost in Bailey, Colorado. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk a little Bigfoot. Please subscribe through Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. It does help. Now, let's get started and venture into the backcountry to the Sasquatch Outpost. Jim Meyers, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, John.
So you are the owner of the Sasquatch Outpost located in lovely Bailey, Colorado, right?
That is correct.
What is your height there? What's your elevation?
Right where the store is located, it's about 7,300, but most of Bailey residents live about 85. That's where my house is at.
Holy cow.
So
you guys breathe okay?
The town's in a little bit of a valley, but yeah, we love it.
Couple things first off the bat. How long has the Sasquatch Outpost been in business? And how long have you been an enthusiast?
Well, we opened the outpost, and when we opened, it was not the Sasquatch Outpost. It was Bailey Country Store and Sasquatch Outpost. That was in 2013, June. And it took us we opened thinking we would sell groceries. That's what this store had always been. It was built in 1878, the building, and had always been a grocery store. You know, eventually other big chains came into the area, and this store just was not viable anymore as a grocery store. So we started the store in 2013, probably dropped the Bailey Country Store name in about 14, maybe early 15. And through the counsel of a very wise business consultant, we went fully into the Bigfoot theme. And it was a risk, obviously. Who knows? There's not many people who can say they've started a Bigfoot store and museum. There's a few around the country, but especially when we started ours, there weren't many. So we've learned a whole lot in the process. We had never been in retail of any kind. So this was a big challenge in the beginning. But the way the store is now and the museum is now, it's been since about 2016. But we never looked back. Once we made that decision to go Bigfoot all the way, it was a one-way decision, and we never went back. And it's been a fantastic journey.
So what is the difference this distinction between the Sasquatch Outpost and the Sasquatch Encounter? Is there a difference between
the outpost and the museum?
Yes.
So the museum is housed inside the outpost building. The gift shop is actually larger than the museum because the vision for the museum came about after we had already established the gift store. So the museum, I tell people, in the gift store, we like to have fun. We poke fun at Bigfoot, we poke fun at ourselves. We have anything and everything you can imagine that has Bigfoot on it. We have shirts that say Bigfoot doesn't believe in you either, or bumper stickers that say Bigfoot saw me, but no one believes him, and just lots of funny things. But once they step through the doors into the museum, I tell people now, I'm not playing with the Bigfoot theme anymore. It's very educational. It's very serious. I'm serious about doing research, and I'm serious about what we portray in the museum. So it's a very different feel when you walk into the museum than what you get in the store.
So I have seen some of the merchandise on your website, and it is really cute. And I can see why people buy that stuff because it's a little tongue-in-cheek. You know, it's
very,
fun.
Very much so, yes.
It's funny because on your website, it says the Sasquatch Encounter Museum is listed as one of the top 10 wackiest places to visit in all of Colorado.
And in fact, it's in the top 2, I believe. We're either number 1 or number 2 wacky roadside attractions. Now, I'm not sure I like being called a wacky roadside attraction, but it comes with the territory. When you're involved in Bigfoot research, that's what I kind of expect from people. But yeah, we were number 2 after the Antique Washing Machine Museum, which wasn't a real encouragement either.
Okay,
and
congratulations. Wow.
I'm not. I don't know if we moved up to number one for sure. I haven't looked at that website in a while, but yeah, we're up there near the top, and which is a lot of fun. And people, I'm doing an expedition next month, and I've got someone flying in from the UK, and I got people from France, and I've got Colorado folks. This topic is not just of interest to Americans; it's of interest to people around the world.
I noticed that you did do excursions. And it's good that you do have a sense of humor about it, because I'm sure that there's some people out there who take it so seriously that they just cannot stand the fact that someone might poke fun at them.
Well, I tell people I try to be a believer to skeptics and a skeptic to believers. And what I mean by that is I know far too many people who are, for one reason or another, Bigfoot researchers or call themselves Bigfoot researchers and literally find a Bigfoot under every bush, in every photo, in every shadow. And that's not who I am. And so I try to debunk as much of that as I can. But to the skeptics, I am 100% a believer. And I tell people, actually, I don't believe Sasquatch exists. I know they exist.
So you're comfortable with it enough that you can poke fun at it and it doesn't bother you.
Yes.
If I come to which I do plan on coming to your location, what kind of exhibits do you have at the outpost?
Well, on the outside of the building, we have a 9-foot cutout of a Sasquatch, so it's hard to miss our store when you drive by. Thankfully, in Bailey, we have no restrictions on the size of signs we can have. My sign covers the whole front of my buildings.
God bless America.
God bless you have no doubt when you arrive that you're at the Sasquatch Outpost. In the museum, we have quite a few things, and it's a collection that has grown over time with other researchers donating or loaning us things. But we have anything from plaster cast footprints from all over the country, many of which are on loan from North American Bigfoot Search or from local researchers who've cast footprints and given us copies of those tracks, to lots of photography that I've taken of tree structures that we would attribute to Sasquatch. We have a couple of videos that run back to back, and people just sit and watch as long as they want. We've got a very large map of Colorado with every believable sighting or encounter that people have had who've come in and told us about it. And I limit it to people who have physically walked into my store and told me a story. And there's well over 350 pins on that map, maybe 375 now.
Now, are you talking about just Colorado at this moment?
I'm talking about just Colorado.
Wow.
I don't have a U.S. map. I get many stories from all over the U.S., but because my store is here, I have chosen to focus on Colorado for the sightings map. But we have a display with 2 Sasquatch that I had commercially had built. One is an adult male; he's animatronic, and then there's a juvenile that does not move. But those are a highlight, and people get scared every single day when they go in there.
No,
because they're not expecting. They don't even see him to begin with, and even if they see him, they're not expecting him to move or make any noise. So it's actually quite funny to listen to from the outside. Mixed bag of other things. I've got some scat that's 48 inches long that we think could be from a Sasquatch.
Wow.
So it's just a hodgepodge of a lot of different things, like plaster cast of footprints, but then a lot of it are kind of unique to our experiences and people we know who are willing to at least donate them to the museum for the foreseeable future.
Sure. Yeah, the reason I asked you about the kind of, you have visitors that put the pins in the map from just your area, but everybody knows this is a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, different parts of the world have all kinds of different names for
sure.
These creatures, right? I remember in the southeast part of the country, even things like they call the skunk ape or something like that. It was
skunk ape down in Florida, particularly.
Exactly. And of course, the Yeti in Asia, and Australia has
Yeren in China,
exactly.
The Yowie in China. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the Yowie in Australia.
Well,
so
what continues to hold the public's attention in this? Is it the fact that we just continually get more news and a peak, or we possibly have a sighting, or is it something larger than that? Do you think it's something inside of us that we just want to believe, or innately
Well, that's a
believe that
great
there's
question,
something?
actually. I think it's probably a combination. I think people are making new documentaries every day. We've been involved in several just in the past year. So anytime you turn on Dish Network or any of the big networks, something is on TV about Bigfoot. Much of it not even worth watching, to be honest.
Sure.
Some of the movies. I'm not talking about the documentaries, but the movies where Sasquatch is portrayed as a bloodthirsty killer and
Right. There's a lot of
eating
those.
people. There are many. That's the majority of how they portray Sasquatch, which I don't think is true, but I think so. There's a lot out there. There's more and more and more that people are seeing. Someone came in the store the other day, and we mentioned Daphne. My wife mentioned Bigfoot to them, and they said, "What?" And Daphne explained. She goes, "Well, you know Sasquatch." And they said, "What?" They had literally, I don't know how that's possible in this country, had never heard either of those terms. They didn't even know what they were,
Jim, you're
what
putting
we
me
were referring
on.
to.
Or they were putting
And
you on. Come on.
maybe because you would think anybody has heard at least of the term Bigfoot. And so I couldn't believe it when she told me that the person was just standing there kind of eyes glazed over. So, it's in the public eye much more now, even more than 10 years ago when we opened our store. People are willing to talk about it much more openly now. People have kept their own experiences to themselves for the majority of their life. This has probably happened 5 or 6 times at least, where a couple comes up to my counter. We start talking about this topic. The husband says, "Well, I've got a story for you." He starts telling a story, and the further he goes into the story, the more bizarre of a look his wife gives him. Eventually, she looks at him kind of with concerned look, like, "You've never told me that story." And he will say, and this is almost verbatim what happens every time, and he will say, "Well, I didn't think you would believe me, so I never
Right.
did." But
Right.
when he was with someone he thought would believe him, he told me and now his wife at the same time. I honestly believe there are more encounters today than ever before because there's more people in the woods. I think that happened during COVID, particularly, that the country just became addicted to going outside and being in the woods and hiking and biking in order to
Sure.
avoid enclosed spaces and COVID. So I think it's a combination of things, but there's no question in my mind that the interest level today for the entire country and much of the world is extremely high. We should be getting more and more and more high definition photographs of them, which we're not, which is kind of a funny dichotomy, but that too will come, I believe, sooner or later. Images with their iPhone or Android phone, which are very high quality cameras.
Yes.
But the problem is most people who are out hiking, biking, camping, hunting are not there to see a Sasquatch. So when they hear something or see something and they have to try and fish out their phone, by the time they get it out, whatever it was is gone. It's understandable in many ways. So few people have gotten clear footage, but that's another reason skeptics give. Where's all the photos? Where's all the evidence?
You can count me in that camp too.
That's good.
Like I said, there are a lot of footage and photos out there. There really are. And the problem is you've got all these people out there faking it as well. And that's hard to overcome. It's
Yeah.
like the government planting fake UFO stories so it will discount real UFO stories,
As though there's not enough real ones already. So I'm fully convinced, 100%, that the government not only knows about it, that's the very least of what they know, but I'm sure they have bodies and they know everything about them. They've studied those bodies. I've even heard stories of humans in this country able to speak Sasquatch and speaking to a Sasquatch conversationally back and forth in each other's language. That wouldn't surprise me, actually. With the experience I've had around them and with them, they are so intelligent that I would be surprised if they did not have their own language. And I don't think they do. I think I do think they do have their own language. And I think that's been evidenced by quite a few recordings and things. So in many ways resemble us. They are family oriented, live in family groups, walk on 2 legs, speak a language to each other, protective of their own family, all the things that we would hope to be, I think.
Sure. Jim, would you consider yourself an educator as well?
I do.
In one of our conversations, you said
Yeah.
that you were giving a talk at a local State
Yes.
Park. That's what this was about when you mentioned
Yes.
that?
And when I give talks, I try to educate people. I'm not trying to entertain. There are people who would prefer to entertain people. I don't want to be boring, but at the same time, I would rather educate people so that when they go in the woods, see, hear, smell something, they may stop and say, no, I remember someone talking about this, and this is what I think this is, or whatever. The entertainers, quite honestly, are the ones who get invited to speak at these massive conferences around the country. Entertainers and television personalities, because the general public really, when it comes down to it, don't want to talk to researchers. They'd rather talk to personalities. Not that none of those guys are doing research. I would never say that. But you don't see people who are day in and day out in the field doing serious, painstaking, methodical research. People who are generally on the TV programs don't have time to do that because they're so busy speaking around the country and doing their own documentaries and things. There's a whole unsung army in this country of literally thousands of people who are really giving everything they've got to try and understand these beings.
Sure. And I think that with a little bit of education, maybe someone would not be so quick to just discount something.
Right.
You know, if you hear something, they wouldn't be so quick to say, oh, it's probably just a deer or something, you know?
And when I get the odd troll emails or whatever, my challenge to them is, you're talking to me out of ignorance. If you would actually do some research, you would find for yourself what I already know to be true, that there is a plethora of evidence out there. You just Google the term Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and I think you'll get 4 million hits. I mean, it's everywhere out there for the person who cares to actually go look and see. I'm not even talking about going out in the woods. I'm talking just looking online and seeing how much research has already been done. It's astounding.
I assume that you have had your own experiences, and that's what has cemented.
I've had quite a few. Yeah.
Right. That's why you have such faith in this, and probably why you do the work that you do.
Exactly. If I had never had my own encounters, things I've seen and heard and experienced, I don't think I would have continued in this vein of being a researcher and building a career out of this, because it would be too discouraging. I know people who have been doing research for 30 years and they would say, well, I've never once seen a Sasquatch. And I'm thinking, how discouraging to be doing something for 30 years and you have no stories to tell your critics as to why you believe what you do. I mean, that would be extremely frustrating. So yeah, I've had multiple encounters, many of which I was not able to see the Sasquatch, but I knew they were there. I could hear them doing whatever, knocking, vocalizing, whatever. And I've seen their eyes at night probably 7 or 8 times now because they glow in the dark. It's a phenomenon that's unbelievable to behold. So all of those I consider encounters. If I've got something standing on the other side of my tent, pushing on my tent, whether I can see it or not, I call that an encounter.
Sure.
Jim, I've only had one daytime visual.
Oh, okay, but you have.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess that would make you a believer, right? It probably only takes once, right?
It only takes one, correct.
Jim, I see on your website you have actually not just on your website, because I have listened to an episode of this. This is your podcast called You Don't Know Squatch, correct?
Correct.
And you say you've been doing that for what? A couple of years
now?
For
a couple of years, a couple of seasons, yeah.
So I assume that what you're doing with that is sharing people's stories, basically.
Sharing people's stories, which I love to do because everybody's story is unique, and yet they all have similar characteristics because we're talking about the same beings that we're encountering. Or I talk about my own research, something I've been learning or discovering recently, or I'll talk about Sasquatch in the news and what's going on and what stories are out there right now and why they're out there. Occasionally I'll answer questions that people have written in and asked us on the webpage or the YouTube page. So yeah, we try to keep it mixed up a little bit just so it's not always the exact same thing.
Sure. Well, I have 3 stories myself.
Let's hear them.
Now, they're not involving me directly, but 2 of them are family members, and one of them was documented by the police. So I come from originally Southern Illinois. Okay.
All right.
Now, Southern Illinois is no longer the Midwest. Southern Illinois is the South. Okay. So
Okay.
there are certain attitudes down there, like we've already touched upon, which is kind of privacy. You know, if someone has an encounter, keep it to yourself, you know. Southern Illinois is covered by the Shawnee National Forest. Okay. I want to say it's something like 280,000 acres, I think.
Okay. Big property.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, there's towns scattered throughout it. But the creature that, when I was growing up, that everybody talked about was called the Big Muddy Monster.
Okay.
That was the name of it because of our location near the Big Muddy River in Southern Illinois. Okay. So
it wasn't that the creature was muddy. They're talking about his habitat.
The one of the things that was said about it that it was kind of light colored tan, but it was often covered in mud or muddy.
Okay. All right.
And any traces of it footprint wise would be muddy tracks.
Yes.
But one story concerns my mother. She was driving one night down a country road, turned onto a Route 3, which is for that part of the country, it's a main road, but very little traffic down there. There's not a huge population in Southern Illinois. She caught sight of something. Her headlights flashed across it. And to this day, she tells the same story over and over. She always has. A tall being, larger than a man, kind of tan colored, kind of like a deer. That's the color that she would describe it for. Upright. When her headlights flashed across it, it was across the highway. It turned its head toward her, so she got a little bit of a view, even though the headlights just crossed over it. But the one thing that she always remembered was that its eyes, to her, seemed to flash red. And that was very disconcerting. She went home and told my father the story. And he thought that, he'd never heard of any animal that's eyes reflected red.
And they actually I don't believe they reflect red. I believe they shine red.
Okay.
Their eyes, I can't explain them how they do this, but their eyes shine on their own. And red is one of the colors that people see.
Well, that's very interesting to hear that, because I always just assumed that was a detail in her mind that she got wrong, because I don't know of any animals either. But now you say you've heard of this before.
Yes, it's very common.
Ah, okay. She will be very happy to hear that.
To have her story validated by that fact, yeah. Red, white, yellow are three colors that I have seen, and that others see, even within a group of Sasquatch. And I've seen up to 15 to 17 at one time in the dark in the woods. And their eyes were different colors between individuals. Again, it's a mystery. Don't know how that happens. But no, what she saw is not uncommon.
She'll be excited to hear that. And again, it's something that was not shared other than just with the family, right?
Yeah.
Now, this next one's a little bit creepier. My uncle, okay, I'm not going to say his name, but I have an uncle, and he has a piece of property out in a location called Big Hill, very rural, and it's just a couple miles from the Big Muddy River. And he and my other uncle were getting ready to go raccoon hunting at night. That's just something you do in the South. And all of a sudden, when they were inside getting ready, their hunting dogs just went batshit and just completely going crazy outside. So they ran outside to see what was going on, and they are barking at this small barn that he has on the property. And they're like, what in the heck is going on here? They did hear something kind of rustling around inside. Of course, the first thing they're thinking is, well, raccoon or some other animal.
Yeah.
So they go to the door of this, right? They're both armed. They brought out their guns, of course. They open the barn door, and the dogs immediately start to whimper and will not go into the barn. Okay. Now, these are hunting dogs. Okay. These dogs are trained to hunt anything. And they refused to go into the barn. So one of my uncles ran inside to grab a flashlight because they didn't have one. So by the time he got out with that, he shined the light inside the barn. There's a smaller door in the back of the barn, and nothing was there. But there were muddy tracks, and there was the stench. Now, the stench, I don't know if you're familiar with like how the smell of like, say, the bottoms. I mean, your elevation is high. When your elevation is low, you get this mossy kind of swampy smell.
Yeah.
And that is always associated with this creature that we're talking about in Southern Illinois. That's always been something that people have said. So this
earthy, mossy.
Yep. So this stench is prevalent in this small barn. And they decide, well, I don't know what that is, but we're going to try to see if we can track it. The dogs refused to track it. Which
is also not uncommon.
So they were a little unnerved. I don't know if they actually went out hunting. The key thing to me in this story is that, one, there were both of them together, right? So they both could confirm. But it's the behavior of the dogs that's always fascinated me, because that is completely against character for this type of hunting dog.
What they're raised to do, what they're trained to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So I can just imagine them out there in the middle of the night, and these dogs, I imagine them being very unnerved.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
and did they, looking back on it, did they believe it was the mighty monster?
Well, that's what they say. I mean, that is something that they claimed, although they would never say it. Well, yeah, it was a big mighty monster. They would kind of dance around that a little bit and just say, well, it was something. Okay, there was something in there that scared the dogs, and even these hunting dogs would not trail it. So not physically seeing it, but knowing that it was there.
It was there or had been there recently.
Right.
Okay.
And then the third story, another quick story. Now, this one is a little bit well known down there because there was a police report on it. There was a couple, and forgive me, I don't know the names, but I know the details. There was a couple that were out in the forest just parking, making out or whatever in the state forest. And they heard and saw something that unnerved them so much that they immediately drove to the police station to report it. I guess the woman was hysterical. But the reason that this is interesting is that they were so unnerved that when they went to the police department, they would have really had to have been shook up because they were not supposed to be together. Okay? There was something, one of them was married or something like that, right? So,
and they didn't even care about being together.
No, they ran right to the police. A police officer was sent out to the area, okay, and did find muddy tracks, did report a smell, and then he himself became so rattled that he just drove straight back to the station, after just looking it over in a cursory manner. So those are and there's more stories like this. It's just that in that part of the country, that's kind of the nickname of this creature that people claim to see.
Okay.
The big muddy monster.
Those are great stories.
Yeah, I mean that's and there are more. I wished I could say that I had ever experienced anything like that myself, but it's a very rural area. Like I said, it's in the middle of the forest. It's a large area. It covers the entire east to west stretch of Illinois, the entire bottom of the state. So, it's, there are certain areas of the country where they give these things different names, and there is a mythology.
And they have been seen in every single state in the United States, with the exception of Hawaii. And so there is no state that does not have recorded sightings. Some have more, but not always the ones you would expect. Everyone thinks they're only in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, and there are many sightings, but there's hundreds of sightings in Colorado, the Deep South, all up the eastern seaboard.
Even the eastern seaboard, yeah, I guess you're right.
There's a lot of all the way up Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont. I went to school in Alabama. There are sightings in Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana. It's a shame that Bigfoot organizations like mine don't talk together more, because we would have such a wealth of knowledge of all the sightings that all these organizations have recorded must exceed 50,000 at least. We just tend to be very territorial and not sharing information. It's kind of silly. I'm not sure why that is.
But you're right. That's too bad.
For most of these folks, it's their hobby. It's not their living, like would be the case in my case. But I can tell you a story that happened last weekend. If you'd like to hear it. So every summer we co-organize what we call the Bigfoot Adventure Weekend, BAW, with another organization who have been doing these weekends in Ohio for many, many years. And the organizers moved to Colorado and talked to me about joining with them. And so it's been great. This was our third summer to do this. Every summer we've had something happen in the group so far. And so we had about 35 participants coming from California, some of them, Texas, Indiana, quite a few different states, and they come in here to Bailey, and we have an area, an old historic lodge, Glen Isle Resort, and everyone camped on the property, and we have all our meals there. And then at night, on Friday night and on Saturday night, we divide the group up into smaller groups and take everyone out. So there were 6 of us who were guides and 5 or 6 people in each group approximately. So my group, we went into an area that I had been before, and actually had some things happen last year around the same time. But this year it was extremely quiet. We didn't hear anything. We didn't have any indication that they were even around. And the same with the other groups. But the 6th group was in an area that I've been in a lot. In fact, I'm going back to tomorrow with one of my research partners, and we've done a lot of gifting in that area with various, probably different Sasquatch. So we knew they were around, but it wasn't me with that group. I was with a different group. So my friend Jason took this group in, and we usually go into the day, like Saturday afternoon, come back afternoon, and then we go back out at night, just so that everyone kind of gets the lay of the land during the daytime. So they were back out at night. They had not gone more than a quarter of a mile from the car park, and they were using a thermal imager, monocular, and they spotted a moose, and they all looked at the moose, took turns looking at it. Then Jason was kind of scanning, and he stopped, and he saw something vertical, and he wasn't sure what he was looking at. It was because it's thermal, it's a heat signature, so it was something that was warmer than the surrounding woods. Then he saw it take a couple of steps to one direction, turn around, moved back, and he didn't yell. He knew better than that. He's been doing this a long time, but he said, "There's one, there's one, there's one." And without the thermal imager, they would never have known it was there.
Right.
And then they actually saw 2 adults and a juvenile. And they could, apparently, I haven't seen his video because he got his GoPro out, put it up to the lens of the thermal, and was able to film the thermal image on his GoPro. So, he's got a reduction in resolution there just because he's going from one to the other. But he said you can definitely see them swinging their arms and walking. So all 5 of them, 6 of them, saw the image, saw these Sasquatch through the thermal. They can all attest to it. Then on their way out, back to the vehicle, they came across some tracks, and they realized that these Sasquatch had used that trail earlier in that evening, perhaps, and they found adult tracks, barefoot tracks, and the juvenile. The adult track were approximately 7 feet apart. The stride was 7 feet, even 7.5. And they measured from one, usually when you're doing this, you'll measure either heel to heel or toe to toe on 2 different tracks to get the approximate stride. Well, they measured somewhere around 14 of these tracks where they could actually see the track in the ground and measured, and they were consistently 7 to 7.5 feet stride. So we're talking a large Sasquatch.
Wow.
And
how tall do you
when
have
they
to be
saw
to
them,
have
they
stride?
said it was about 100. He figured about 150 yards away.
Wow.
Close enough that they could get a heat signature from it, too far away to see details, and even if they had shown their flashlights, they wouldn't have been able to see that far. Without the thermal imager, they would never have seen them at all.
No kidding.
Which begs the question, how often are we out in the evening or at night, and they're there, we just don't have the equipment that we would need to see them.
Wow, that is really interesting. Especially, you say that all the people can verify this?
Everybody saw them, yes.
No
so
kidding. That's pretty incredible. You know, I mean, all the time I was growing up, I've always been kind of hot and cold on Sasquatch.
Sure.
Because, you know, there's every time someone comes up with a big claim, you find out that they've tried to hoax it in some way, which damages your...
It does. It does.
And that's too bad, too, because meeting someone like you who actually enjoys looking at the actual science and the evidence, you know, it gets me excited again, like I was when I was younger, about, you know, just what is out in the world that we don't know about.
Yeah, it's a mystery. It's we love mysteries, things that we don't really understand. And Sasquatch certainly falls into that category. And I believe Sasquatch is only one of the beings that probably exist in this country that are unknown officially to science, but known to individuals who've encountered them. So, yeah, we've had them in our campsites. I can't even tell you how many times now, walking around at night, leaving tracks, pushing on the tents, screaming, talking, just all kinds of things that left no doubt in our minds who we were dealing with. And because it's not behavior, there's no other creatures in the forest. Bears don't behave that way. Mountain lions, any large predators, they don't behave that way. And plus, they don't leave tracks that are flat-footed and five-toed and twice the size of ours or 3 times the size of ours. So, yeah, it would be easy, I would imagine, John, from someone in your perspective to say or to think, well, I know a lot of people talk about it, but, you know, I've never heard anybody personally, outside of a couple of family members maybe, who had encounters. Even if people share their own personal stories, the hard skeptic is going to say, well, I didn't see it, so I don't believe you.
Yeah, there's always a little doubt, you know, anytime anyone tells you anything.
Well, because it's an incredible idea that there could be these 9-foot hominids, hairy, living among us, all around us, and how come we don't see them?
Well, I tell you,
we do. That's the thing, we do.
I'm firmly in the Agent Mulder camp of I want to believe. Right? That's.
And you might have that experience one of these days. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to come out. You know, I've been wanting to go to Colorado. It's on my bucket list, and when I do, I'm definitely stopping by.
Well, if you come out here, John, I will take you out into the woods.
I would love it. I would love that. Well, Jim, I think it's time to wrap this up, but I tell you, this has been an education and an honor to talk about this with you, someone who's out there actually putting in the work.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure and happy to talk with whoever's interested to listen.
Sure. So tell us about your website. How can people find you?
Well, you can find us at sasquatchoutpost.com, and that is our website where we have some research news and things, as well as our online store where you can find most of the quirky things that we sell in the store. And I also have a YouTube channel called, I believe, the Sasquatch Outpost. I have many videos to upload to that site that aren't yet uploaded. The primary reason being our internet is so ridiculously slow in the mountains here that it usually takes all night to load one video. So, but there's a few things on there that are fun and interesting, and I think I've uploaded some eye glow videos so people can get an idea of what their eyes might look like at night.
Sure.
And so those are two of the best ways to reach us.
Great information. All right, everybody, go check it out, okay? Sasquatch Outpost. Live it, love it.